All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark. It was a beautiful day today, so I got outside and played tennis for like an hour and a half. So I am super beat, but I want to get you guys this episode discussing Bad Batch episode 6 and 7 this week. I think it's 6 and 7. I did not know that we were getting 2 episodes this week, so I was super pumped to open Disney Plus and see that I had 2 episodes to watch. So we're going to be talking about infiltration, then extraction. So we'll be talking about 2 episodes. And overall, I enjoyed these episodes. I don't think they were as strong as I hoped they would be, especially at this point in the season and kind of the stakes that we're building. I think they're good. I enjoyed them overall, but there was something off about them. Something was missing, whether it was dialogue not feeling as sharp or the character interactions not hitting as hard as I feel they should have. But there was just something missing here that I think last season when they had the 2 episode mid-season with Truth and Consequence and Solitary Clone, I think it was, those back-to-back were fantastic for 2 episode chunks. But these 2, I just feel were a little weaker. And in the final season, I kind of wish that they were a bit stronger. But I'm going to get into all of it. Just to give a quick overview of the 2 episodes, we essentially follow Rex and his band of clones that he's been kind of picking up throughout his adventures, clones that have defected from the Empire, and now they're working as a cell that tries to save other clones from the same fate. And we see that they're interested in Mount Tantus. We see that the Bad Batch are going to them now because Rex calls to them. Rex heard that Omega is being hunted by these super elite assassin clones, which are these clones that have been brainwashed and turned into these one-man army assassins. And so we get the Bad Batch and Rex back together. They meet up on Teth. I did not think I'd be seeing Teth twice in 1 year. We saw it in Ahsoka during the flashbacks with Anakin, and now we see it here. Teth, of course, is one of the worlds we saw in the first Clone Wars movie, where the clones Ahsoka and Anakin climb the side of the plateau and they race to get to the top, and we have that really cool showdown at the top of the spire. And we see the same spire here in this episode, and we see Rex has kind of made this his base of operations. So that was really cool. And yeah, so this episode is a lot of the Empire hunting Rex and Omega. We see a couple of these assassin clones show up, and then Wolf comes into the picture. Wolf is kind of the cleanup crew that the assassin clone calls. So then we have Wolf in the picture, and we know Wolf ends up working with Rex in Rebels. So it was interesting to see him come into the fold here. But I do want to start at the very beginning of the episode with Senator Chuchi. We see Rex is working alongside of her, and we saw that relationship start in the mid-season finale of last season, where Chuchi is fighting for the rights of the clones that are being phased out and mistreated, and Chuchi's the leader of the veterans organization at this point. And we see that she's meeting with a separatist senator, and this is really cool. I think this is setting up a lot for her and the politics of this time outside of the Bad Batch, because she's reaching across the aisle. You know, they talk about how they were on opposite sides of the war in the Clone Wars, and Chuchi's like, well, I have a plan. And we don't get much else from Chuchi. I thought at the beginning of this episode we'd kind of be focusing a bit more on what her plan is, but I think they're setting up for her to kind of get an allegiance of senators from both sides to oppose the Emperor, and I don't think it's going to end well. I don't think Chuchi is going to make it to the end of this show. We don't see her in the Rebel Alliance, so I think, unfortunately, the Emperor is going to come down hard on her and many of the other senators she tries to rally around her, in secret, of course, because in Andor we see Mon Mothma doesn't know of outright assassinations of senators, but I think Chuchi is going to be silenced, which I'm very sad and not excited to see, but I think it could be really emotional. So this meeting gets broken up by one of these assassin clones, and that's how Rex and Hauser capture an assassin clone. They bring him to Teth, and the Bad Batch meet them on Teth, and they try to question this assassin clone. We see on the way to Teth, the Bad Batch are flying, and we see Omega has a toothpick in her mouth, and she's kind of emulating Crosshair, and Crosshair notices it, and Hunter especially notices it. And we know that Hunter has been the 4th most father to Omega, or at least he's trying to be the most father figure-esque to Omega, and that's kind of been built through the last couple seasons. And it's interesting to see maybe a note of jealousy here from Hunter seeing Omega kind of getting closer to Crosshair when in reality they haven't had as much interaction as him and Omega have had and the adventures they've had. So it's very interesting to see some tension maybe arise in the future between them and the family dynamic kind of splintering because of jealousy and just inter-family conflict. I think that would be great to explore. I do, however, wish that maybe Omega and Crosshair were out on their own for a bit longer, because it does feel a bit rushed that she's now emulating Crosshair to such a high degree when in reality they only escaped from Tantus, worked together on that one mission, and then they were reunited with the Bad Batch so quickly. I think that they had more time together outside of the Bad Batch and really were leaning on each other more. I think that would have established that emulation a bit more, but they went with this. I don't fully agree with it. I don't think it's fully fleshed out, but it is funny to see her kind of have this angsty side to her because she is becoming a teenager, and Crosshair is just full of angst and being an edgelord. So it kind of matches with maybe where she's headed in her maturity. But I thought it was an interesting touch, and we see throughout these two episodes that Crosshair has really come into this role of being a very, very, very protective father figure to Omega. We see him when they're being chased. He's like, you got enough in your pack? Is that too heavy? Stay close to me. And she's like, I got it. And he's like, oh, you're going to love me. I'm super overprotective. And that makes sense for his character. And we thought Hunter was overprotective. Crosshair is going to be 10 times. He's going to be the no fun father. Nothing gets by him. So that'll be cool to see develop over the rest of the season. Wrecker is kind of like Omega's brother. Hunter is the responsible father. Crosshair is maybe the more edgy father, but the most protective of her. And he would do anything, good, bad, ugly, to make sure she's safe. Not saying Hunter wouldn't, but Crosshair has crossed that line before. Getting back to Teth real quick and Rex and his motley crew of clones, every time I see this, the concept of these ex-clone troopers saving other clone troopers in these like spec ops missions and setting up a base of operations in secret, all of this makes me so sad that this show wasn't more based around that, because it's always a concept that I've always wanted to see. When you had the Legos or action figures as a kid, you're like, oh, what would happen if clones fought against the stormtroopers and like clones didn't go to the Empire? That would be so cool to see them kind of be these spec ops operatives and fight back against the Empire. They're not rebels, but they're kind of their own cell. And every time I see Rex and Hauser and all these other clone troopers from these different factions, we see one with like purple armor, it just makes me think like, oh, that would be such a cool concept to focus around a show. But we got the Bad Batch instead, which is fine. They've done a good job with the Bad Batch. Now, before I get into the whole showdown with the assassin clone, I do want to talk about a very interesting scene that they put in here with Echo and Omega, where he gives her this new modified blaster that's like a bowcaster and Boba Fett's blaster put together. And you could see this as just like a scene where it's like, oh, Omega gets her own like cool new unique weapon. But for me, the way they framed this, the way they separated Echo in the background, and there was no music, and it was just kind of like, oh, Echo's going to go off on his own mission here. It just felt like a farewell for the character. So I personally think that this is going to be one of the last times we see Echo. I think he's going to die in the near future, which is sad to say, but I think it does make sense. I've always said that Echo has been very underutilized in the Bad Batch show. I think he's had some moments where they've pushed through and made him feel like a necessary part of the team, but it feels like a lot of the time he's just kind of a droid character that is just there to slice consoles, but we never really dive into his trauma that much. We don't really talk about Fives and his relationship. Him and Rex don't really reminisce about the Clone Wars, so I feel like he's been underutilized, so I kind of understand why they might be setting it up that he's gonna finally die, and I hope they do it justice because he deserves it. Okay, so now we can get into the assassin clone showdown. Wolf shows up as backup, and we know that Omega is their main target. She has some value to Mount Tantus. We have the metachlorian counts. They say M count here. The clones have no idea what M count is. All of us as the audience know that it's metachlorian count. So it's interesting that we know more than the characters, and it'll be cool to see them discover this. But I think the overall, dynamic of the assassin clone chasing them, using all of his gadgets and stuff is really cool. I thought his ship design was so sick. I thought that was such a great and menacing ship design. And I love his musical score and theme for the Assassin Clones by Kevin Kiner. It's so like deep and menacing. I thought that was such a great addition to the feeling of this episode. I think the choreography overall was really cool for the most part here. We have some night vision fighting. We have the knife fight between Crosshair and the clone. We see Crosshair uses like a special gadget to shoot like a explosive onto the wall where the clone is hanging, and that kind of gives them more time to get away. I think for the most part, it was just cool action. Wasn't anything amazing. It wasn't the best action we've seen, but it was engaging for the most part. And again, we see Crosshair, as I've been discussing, missing shots that he never used to miss. He keeps shaking his hand, so I think it's going to come up later in this season, or just the fact that his character is going to have to accept that his only skill that he had, he has to give up, and that's going to help him give up the soldier lifestyle, which all of the Bad Batch are trying to do when they get Omega to safety. But Crosshair has a showdown with this assassin clone, and it's great conflict because Crosshair was a part of that program. We know that Crosshair was on track to become one of them, but because he's in the Bad Batch, he's defective, just like some of the Bad Batch didn't follow Order 66. Crosshair couldn't be brainwashed and trained to be these assassin clones. And I thought that was such a great line. He's like, being defective has its perks sometimes. And so this assassin clone tries to talk to him. He's like, remember, brother, where you could be this. You could have joined us. You could have been part of the Empire. And it's just great to see Crosshair fight back against the shadow of what he used to be or what he was going to become. It's a great foil for his character. And there's been a lot of theories out there that this assassin clone, because he survives this, and we see there's a lot of attention on this clone, not just some random assassin. He has to be some sort of character. And a lot of people are saying it's Tech. I do not think it is. I think that would be terrible. I think Tech's death in season 2 was so well done, so impactful. And I think if they undercut that with him surviving and now being part of the Empire, I just don't find that interesting. Again, there's a possibility that he is alive. I've seen Dave Filoni and the animation crew bring back characters that we thought were dead, and they do a great job, like Darth Maul. But in this case, I don't see them bringing him back and be able to tie it up in an interesting way. My theory is that this assassin clone is someone else, another clone that we know of and have seen in the Bad Batch, especially in an episode last season where Crosshair and him have disagreements on the Empire and what it means to be a soldier and follow orders, even though they're wrong. And if you remember the episode, then I'm talking about Commander Cody. Commander Cody, at the end of that episode, Solitary Clone, he walks off and he's like, I don't think I'm down for this anymore. And we know the Empire's not just going to accept that. Cody's a great soldier, so I doubt that they would just dispose of him. What's another way they can use him? They can make him an assassin clone. And I think that would make a lot of sense here. And I think it would be perfect because he was the one that Crosshair had these discussions with about leaving the Empire, or at least considering leaving the Empire. So having him be the person to show Crosshair what he could have become, I think that would be much more impactful than it was Tech, and they used Tech as like a cheap gimmick or way to build tension or conflict. I think using Cody specifically for Crosshair would be perfect. So my guess is it's Cody. So after we get the Crosshair and the maybe Cody fight, we have the standoff between Wolf and the other clones that are still loyal to the Empire, and Rex, his motley crew, and the Bad Batch. And Rex levels with Wolf. He takes off his helmet. He's like, Wolf, you're hunting a kid. I know you've been trained to follow orders, but this just isn't right. The Empire is doing terrible things to our brothers, to our clone brethren. You need to wake up and realize that you're on the wrong side. And while I enjoy the sentiment of this scene, I just don't think it had the gut punch that I wish it had. I do like that they're still drawing on the brotherhood and kinship of the clones. We see Wolf didn't realize that this would be a base full of ex-clones, and when they're leaving, they're like, we have to give them proper burials. It's the least we can do for our brothers. And Rex, again, saying, I'm not going to fight you. This is pointless. We're brothers. We need to be on the same side here. And I appreciate it just because, there's that kinship, there's that unspoken bond. But I feel like they were trying to call back to a relationship that wasn't established in Clone Wars. Rex and Wolf maybe shared the screen one or two times or shared an operation one or two times, but they really didn't have that same chemistry or on-screen presence that like Cody and Rex did. We saw Cody and Rex have those conversations a lot. We saw them in episode 5, Rookies, they go to the Rishi base together. Like they have those conversations and there was a chemistry there, but in this case, when they kind of call back to the Clone Wars here with Rex and Wolf, it just didn't land as much for me. It felt more like they were calling to the Rebels relationship that they have, because we know that Wolf and Rex join up in Rebels. And so it felt like if you hadn't seen Rebels, you don't really understand this dynamic between them because it wasn't really set up in Clone Wars. So it was weird because it felt like it was referencing something that hadn't happened yet, and you had to have watched Rebels to get it. So for me, this just fell a little flat. Also, the fact that we know that Wolf turns and survives and joins up with Rex and Rebels, there wasn't much tension here for people that had seen the show because we're like, oh, well, we know that Wolf isn't going to do anything bad because he does eventually join Rex. So that's really where this kind of fell flat for me here with this interaction that I felt should have been a lot stronger. And so Wolf lets him go, and the end of the episode is Rex telling Hunter, hey, they're coming after Omega. She's important to their research on Tantus, which I felt like we didn't really need Rex to tell us that. I feel like that was very obvious from the fact that Omega was being hunted. But it served to kind of tell us where the story's going next, and that's Hunter looking into why this M count is so important and why Omega fits into that. So I think that's kind of the next arc of the season that we're getting into. I wish it was delivered maybe in a less expositional or talking to the audience way, but I digress. Overall, these 2 episodes were enjoyable. I had a good time with them. I think they could have been better. I think I was expecting better out of them. I wish some moments hit a little harder. I liked other moments like Crosshair and the assassin clone fighting and that dynamic there. I liked Crosshair being a very, very protective father to Omega. We see her emulating him. Chuchi, I think we have a really cool storyline set up for the end of the season with the more geopolitical side of the galaxy at this point in the timeline. And while I didn't love the interaction here as much as I wish I did, I think it'll be interesting to see how Wolf kind of comes into play with Rex and the other clones that have left the Empire or are planning to leave the Empire, and what the end goal is, because we know Rex, Wolf, and Gregor kind of end up in the middle of nowhere. And so do things go south and not many clones survive except them 3 and the Bad Batch? I don't know. It's just a lot of questions that I think are exciting to see play out in this final season. And finally, I think Cody is the clone, the assassin clone. I don't think it's Wrecker. No, I don't think it's Tech, even though a lot of people think it's Tech. I don't think it's Tech. That would be cheap to bring him back, but Disney likes to bring people back in Star Wars from the dead, so can never count that out. But anyways, this was a bit of a longer episode, but we had 2 episodes to talk about, so it makes a lot of sense. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Definitely want to hear your thoughts and theories on the Bad Batch, where you think this season is going, who the assassin clone is, all that stuff. Want to hear from you guys. So you can follow me and DM me at *_wars_mark of balance on Instagram. If you enjoyed this podcast, leave a review on whatever streaming service you're listening to it on. And tell whoever you know that likes Star Wars about the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I talk about everything Star Wars related, so I'm sure I have an episode for them, friend, family, acquaintance, coworker, whatever. Word of mouth is the best way to advertise and market, so I really appreciate it. And as always, thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you. Peace.